Let's win. What's up, y'all? What's up? Welcome back to another episode of BizBuzz Live. I'm your host, Chris Muzan. Man, we got a lot to talk about today in a limited amount of time because we need to have these conversations about these layoffs and what's happening out here. Uh, there's a lot happening, ladies and gentlemen. There's a lot happening. Stick around. Let's chat. What's up, y'all? What's up? We're back for another episode of BizBuzz Live. Again, I'm your host, Chris Muzan, financial coach, helping you through all things finance. I always start the show by reminding you guys that the thesis of this show is to really help people with their cash flow. Being a financial professional, being a financial coach for a long time now, getting a chance to sit down with people, educate them financially, help them get ahead, whether that's with their savings, whether it's in their debt, their investments, their insurance, their financial, I don't know, any financial endeavors that they have in their midterm investments or anything like that, their wealth building strategies, all these things we have conversations around. And inevitably, at some point, it gets back to the conversation of their cash flow. How are you making money? How is money coming in and out of your life? Is it stable? Is it steady? Is it secure? Is this something you believe you're going to have as income for the next 10, 12, 15 years? Have we created anything that's relatively residual or passive? Have we used our brains? Have we used leveraged people or money to be able to continue to bring in income? But the cash flow conversation, ladies and gentlemen, is incredibly important because it's the driver of all other things in our financial life. Okay. It's the driver of all other things in our financial life. So if we're not paying attention to how money is coming in and flowing out of our lives, a lot of times we can't get a hold on the rest of the things. So that's what this conversation is on BizBuzz Live, is because we want to talk about the areas of making income, whether you're at a job currently and that job is feeding you, it's your stream of income, you feel good about it, you're getting paid, relatively well to what you expect, and that's how you choose to live your life. And then we go invest in stocks, bonds, and mutual funds and passive instruments that we put our money into the market, or we trust, our company with it. Then sure, that becomes a model of how you choose to build your financial life. Then you have some people that have a job, but they know it doesn't have the horsepower to get them to where they want to go. So they're looking for extra things. They're looking for supplemental income. They're looking for multiple streams of income. They're looking for ways to get out of the rat race. They're trying to figure out how can they supplement and create something passive or residual on this side where when they still have their full-time job. That's a group of people out there that we talk to a bunch to make sure you have the options. Then there's others of you that are just full entrepreneurs, or you're very entrepreneurial minded already, and you're thinking about what industries should I be paying attention to? What's the next industry on the horizon that we could potentially make money in, or right, can help my family? Maybe you're that person that is open to change and open to learning and open to doing new things. And so you're always going to be ahead of the curve of paying attention to what's happening in our society. But regardless of where you are, the conversation around cash flow is always incredibly important, right? The conversation around how we choose to make money and how it flows into our life is important. Right now, what we're seeing, ladies and gentlemen, in our economy, in our society, are layoffs. That's what we're seeing right now. We're seeing layoffs. We're seeing people get laid off, companies downsizing, and it all starts at the top, at the head, right, with our federal government. So we've been looking at these federal agencies that have been getting demolished by this new administration. And so that becomes the topic. We talked about this before on BizBuzz, just about how this is the time. I know I had some strong opinions, or, just voiced my own thoughts at the time with the information that I had about, hey, taking this buyout, this fork in the road, this severance, whatever they chose to call it. And again, by the way, I'm going to preface all these things by saying something that my buddy Could Be always says. He says, right, I reserve the right to change my mind. Just so you know, I reserve the right to change my mind. A smart and intelligent right, an intelligent person understands that with new information, when new information surfaces, you can form new opinions, meaning you can have new thoughts. So as they say, the young people say, right, don't come for me in the comments, right? Don't come for me with this opinion. This is with the amount of information I have right now. And if I get new information, I'm likely to change my mind. That's being smart, right? So understand that, like, where I stood on the information that I had as far as what this buyout was, what this fork in the road offer was, and then the information that has seemingly come out over the past month or so since we've last talked about it, a lot different. Have a lot more empathy, and I already had empathy and sympathy for people that lose their jobs, because again, I know how tough it is. But the stance that I took and that I continue to take to a degree is that, like, we still just need to be more entrepreneur minded. It sucks that this happens, but this is like the root of the employee mindset of just like, man, I thought it was going to be this way. I worked for the government so that these things could happen, right? So I could serve the American people, not to make money, all these things. And now it seems like that footing is getting taken away from me. What the dream I was sold is not actually the dream long term. All I said is this happens to everybody. It's devastating that it's happening in this manner, right? And as quickly as it is, but like, this happens to everyone that has a job eventually. Eventually, the leadership changes, the management changes. It only happens once in a while that, like, that doesn't happen, and the leadership stays and the management team doesn't stay and the philosophy stays the same, and they keep you as an employee for 40 years, right? That's my grandmother's story, right? My grandmother was a secretary, not secretary, like, she did the books, right? More on the accounting side. She did the books for a coffee company, and she just, the owners fell in love with her, right? The owners fell in love with her and her work ethic. And so as leadership changed, as it passes down to the kids, as they get new management, she was retained because a loved employee, a loved staff member, right? But that doesn't happen too much in 2025, where the company changes, the philosophy changes, the policies change, and you get to stick around. So that's all we're watching, is a lot of these things are changing. Now, good, bad, and different, right or wrong, that's a different debate for a different day. But we just got to pay attention to what's happening. What I want to focus on is the fact that the mindset needs to shift. If we want to get through this, layoffs are going to be a part of life. It's a part of downsizing. Every business, whether it's in the public sector or private sector, it doesn't matter. Labor is one of the main costs for any business, right? For any entity. And so, number one thing when people want to downsize is they're going to look at their labor. They're going to look at the labor, and they're going to pay attention to where all the money's going and how we're paying people and all the stuff. Okay. And so that's all that's happening right now. Again, it's happening in a sector that we didn't believe it would happen in. I'm not here to debate, is that right? Is it wrong? Doesn't matter. It's a shock because we didn't think that we could get laid off from the federal government. We didn't see mass layoffs from the federal government. We've been conditioned to believe that, again, by working for these, and it's a little bit more safe and secure because you have a federal job, and that's just the way it goes. Now, when it's shaking it up, we don't understand how to cope. My job is to help you cope and understand we still got to have a future. You still got to protect your family. You still got to make money. You still got to pay bills. Like, all those things still got to happen. And so we got to figure out what are the other things that we need to go do. But just in case some of you haven't been paying attention, right? The Trump administration initiated a massive federal workforce reduction with over 10,000 federal employees terminated. It's been a lot more, I believe, since then. It's definitely over 10,000. It might be closer to the 100,000. 75,000 workers did accept that buyout, or that fork in the road, whatever they call it, that reduction in it dropped about 4 to 5% of the federal workforce just from that one thing. Okay. So 75,000 workers took it. Boom, they're done. Now, some of the key agencies that have been impacted from a federal government level, the Consumer Financial Protections Bureau laid off 100 people, right? 100 people. The Department of Education had dozens of probationary employees let go. All probationary employees are getting their termination letter regardless if you just switched governmental agencies, whether you've been tenured for a while, doesn't matter. If you're probationary, they're letting you go. Department of Energy let go another 2,000 probationary employees. Human Health Services, 5,200 layoffs across the human and health services agencies. Homeland Security, 400 people laid off. National Park Services, over 1,000 workers laid off. The IRS is firing thousands. Small Business Administration, 720 employees, 20% of staff was cut. The Forest Service, 3,400 workers. USAID, 10,000 employees placed on administrative leave just from that one agency. Department of Defense is going to have layoffs. Department of Veteran Affairs, 1,000 employees getting dismissed, saving almost $100 million annually, right? Just from that. Again, careers and jobs not given, right, or taken away. But there are also could be benefits on the other side. And then consumer, again, we talked about the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. 73 union members got terminated as well. Federal Aviation Administration, hundreds of employees. So this is widespread, ladies and gentlemen, throughout the government, where it's the layoffs are getting hit left and right. It's happening in an industry, in a sector that we didn't believe it would happen in. And now tens of thousands of people, we're definitely upwards of the hundreds of thousands of people right now that have been impacted by this, laid off, need new resources. It's happening across the government agencies. And what this is trickling down to, it's trickling down to all of the other private sector companies as well that are seeing the need to downsize. Whether it's Southwest Airlines that just did their first ever corporate cut. They did their first ever layoffs. I think I read this article that in the past 50 years, Southwest Airlines has never done mass layoffs. They've never cut people in that format. And now they feel the need to. Why? Is it because they know something's up ahead? Is it because they're watching the federal government do it? I'm not sure, but there's a lot of these things happening. These layoffs and hiring freezes are happening all across now the public sector and the private sector. Chevron, Porsche, Blue Origin, Estee Lauder, Salesforce, all these companies have been laying people off on top of all of the federal government, the federal workforce. So what do we need to do, ladies and gentlemen? What do we need to do to get through these layoffs? What do we need to know? What is it that we need to pay attention to? Number one thing, and I'm always going to die on this hill, so to speak, right? I'm always going to kind of plant my flag in this, is that we got to become more entrepreneurial minded. You got to become more entrepreneurial minded. What does that mean? That means you take ownership of all these things. You take ownership of your life. You take ownership of your income. You start to identify talents, skill sets, things that you innately have that you've learned over time that you can then use to be able to monetize to build the life that you need. This is just the shakeup. This is not the first time people have gotten laid off. This is not the last time people will get laid off. The question is, do you want to keep going through this process? Do you want to keep going through this? You're watching it happen. You're watching the devastation. You're watching the emotional toll it's taking. You're watching the financial toll it's taking. You're looking at the stresses. You have two choices of thought here. You can choose to blame the government, blame the companies, blame the economy, point at all the reasons this is wrong, which is one form that people are doing on the internet. They're saying these are all the things that are wrong. This is why it's bad. This is why you should be scared. This is why this shouldn't happen, which again has a point. It has a point. The question is that going to help you build to where you need to go financially? By you saying those things, by you focusing on that, is that going to help you and your family make all the money you need to support your family, protect your income? By talking about the things that we can't control, the problems, the issues, the president, the government, Doge, Elon, the society, the economy, other countries. Like when we talk about other things, we can't control it. We have a choice to talk about those things. That's what I call the employee mindset. The employee mindset, right? Again, this has nothing to do with you having a job specifically. It's how you think about it. Back in the day, I had a podcast with my buddy Terrell. We called it the Perspective Podcast. And on that podcast, we would talk a lot about the entrepreneur mindset versus the intrapreneur, right? The entrepreneur and the intrapreneur. The intrapreneur is just somebody that doesn't want to take the risk of having all of the failure, all the stuff on their back, all the financial risk, but they work inside of a company as if they're the entrepreneur. They create their own position. They do more work than what's required. They add value to every part of the business. They care about growing and scaling the business, not about their title specifically. They don't blame the work, like they take it upon themselves to fix things inside of the business. It was the intrapreneur. So the opposite, the employee mindset doesn't do those things. When things go wrong, they point the finger. It's that guy's fault. It's their fault. That's the reason. My boss is the reason I'm not getting to where I want to go. My coworker is holding me back. This job doesn't want to pay me more. Like they point the finger at all of the things that are the problem. That's the employee mind. The entrepreneurial mind says, if it is to be, it's up to me. If anything's going to change, I got to change. Michael Jackson, I'm starting with the man in the mirror, right? That's the ownership mindset. It's not my boss's fault. It's my fault. Like I didn't show up on time 4 out of the 5 days this week, right? So like that, and I've done that for the past like year and a half. So that's why they don't trust me with certain things, right? Whatever the case is, I've proven that like I haven't been the most reliable, so therefore they can't trust me. Blah blah blah. You have to take ownership of all the things. So in this process of getting laid off, in this process of losing your job, take ownership, take responsibility and say, you know what? I can choose to never let this happen again. I don't like how this feels. I could point the finger at the Trump administration, at the job, at the industry, at the dream I was sold, at whatever. I could point the finger, or I could be like, you know what? I'm going to take control and take ownership of my life. What do I need to do that? I need to focus on my health, my wealth, my relationships. I need to go talk to more people. I need to create my skill sets. I need to really take ownership of my life and say, if it is to be, it's up to me. No one will ever have the control to fire me again. This, even though I don't see it as right, I can still add my 2 cents in the marketplace. I still can add value to a community. I can still add value to the American people. If that's so, why you chose to work for the government, because I've been hearing a lot of people say that. We chose to work for the American people. There's a bunch of ways to work for the American people. You like that you had a check attached to working for the American people. But now, what if you had to go create something to go work for the American people that really gives back to the American people, that really serves a certain market of the American people, and you don't make as much money, and you don't get the security of a paycheck, and it's not funded by the federal government, but you still at least get to do that? That's a choice. We have choices, ladies and gentlemen. We have choices, and that's what I want you to know, and that's what I want you to understand. We have choices for how we choose to go through these things. Life is 10% what happens to you, 90% how you react to what's happening. Say that again. Life is 10% what actually happens to you. 90% of it is how you're reacting to what's happening to you. The hundreds of thousands of people that are getting laid off, that their job is unsecure, right? You have an unsecured job, I guess, right now. Hundreds of thousands of people that are going through this, private and public sector. There's a select few people that are handling this differently than the masses. The masses are handling it, according to social media, not so well. Right. I had some video clips I was going to share with you. I might share them at a different time or in a different format. But a lot of people aren't handling this layoff side well. But it's happened to everybody or to a large group of people. So whether you choose to blame, be depressed, not have options, focus on the negative, try to get another government job, whatever your focus is, there's someone else focused on, this is going to empower me to actually go off and build the life that I want. This is actually going to empower me to go off and design the life I don't need a break from. This is going to, even though it's through the hard times, this is not how I saw my career going. This is not how I thought I would make money. I thought the government would be my end all. like I'm done. I got my pension. I've served my time. Everything's good. Well, that's not what God had in store for me. That's not what it is. But here's what he's teaching me. And here's what I'm learning through this process. And here's how we get to it. That's a choice also. I know it's hard. It's hard to think about those things, guys. But if we're going to have the tough conversations about our cash flow, about how do we make sure we have enough monies to be able to do all the things we need to do, we have to take emotion out of it. Emotion and logic have inverse relationships. When emotion is high, your logic is low. When emotion is really high, logic is low. So what I want to help people do, if you are in the process where you're getting impacted by government layoffs, by you losing your income, by you not knowing what else you can do, reach out to me. Let's have a conversation so I can help you lower the emotion and raise the logic so we can think our way through what are your next steps? What are your next steps? What are you going to do? Maybe getting another job might not be the thing. Maybe it's the exact thing you need right now just to make sure your bills get paid. I don't know. I'm not telling you not to do, like, everybody's different. That's why blanket financial advice doesn't work, because everybody's situation is different. Some of you need to go get a job ASAP. It just may not be in the same field that you were in. Maybe it's something different. Some of you may have enough cushion. You've saved some money, whatever the case is, that you can take a month to breathe and be like, hey, what's the next move? Let's have a conversation about it. At the end of the day, you got to know that these layoffs are going to spare no one. It's going to continue to come in waves until they remove all of it. Then they're going to try to probably build it right back up. And there's going to be some hiring and some industries you can get back into. But be aware, if it happens once, it can happen again, ladies and gentlemen. And I want to make sure that you guys are safe. I want to make sure that you have what you need in order to take your financial life to the level you need it to go to. And the way that we do that is having a plan in place for how we protect our income, for how we grow our income, for what options we have. But remember, it's all entrepreneur mindset. If it is to be, it's up to me. If it is to be, it's up to me. No one else is coming to save it. No one's going to change this. They've made their decisions. Now unfortunately, we couldn't plan. We had to react. Now we have to react in the proper ways, taking ownership of what we want to make happen. All right. Just a little stuff that you might need to know. Reach out to me. Have a conversation with me. Shoot me a DM here on LinkedIn or on YouTube. Shoot me a message on any of my other socials. Let's have a conversation. If you have been affected by the government layoffs or by any of these things, reach out. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk a little bit about what your options are, and let's make sure that you have a level head when it comes to making decisions for your financial future and protecting your family. That's what we're here to do. Every Friday, we're jumping on to make sure that you get this information around your income, around how to grow your cash flow, around what industries you need to be paying attention to so that you can get you and your family ahead. Ladies and gentlemen, until next Friday, peace. Take care.